I'm Meyer, and I'm part of the trauma-informed work group. And we had developed the initial training on initiating trauma-informed practices in the agency. And some of the feedback that we got was, all right, so we looked at the adverse childhood experience survey. Some people felt like they scored pretty high, and we're saying, well, now what? If I've had these negative experiences in my life, what do I do with that? Am I doomed to have medical problems? Am I doomed to struggle? Or is there something I can do? So we realized the next step should really be what to do, and that's resilience. So that's where this workshop originated, and I'm hoping that everybody finds it as useful as we're hoping it is. How do you describe or define resilience? A lot of people's goal today was to learn about resilience. Just before you hear anything else, what do you think resilience is? Does anybody have a sense of what it is?
Someone that can bounce back in adverse times.
Okay. That's a great definition. Anybody else? Ed? Do you think resilience is inborn? You either have it or you don't?
I think there's an aspect, but really you learn. I think it's on-the-job training kind of thing.
Right, exactly. And a lot of people think, I'd like to say people, shaking their heads, because some people think that you're either resilient or you're not. And that's not true. We can really learn, we can really change, and we can change our attitude. So, we definitely are going to talk about some things that you can do. So, Liz's definition was spot on, that this is one of many definitions, but we all face adversity, and how we deal with that is really considered resilience. So the next thing I'm going to do is show you the Diana Nyad video, and this was something that our work group came across. We were looking for some things to do to illustrate this whole idea, and we came across the story of Diana Nyad, and it's really a fascinating story. She attempted at the age of 28 to swim from Florida, or I guess from Cuba to Florida, and she tried 4 times and failed 4 times and continued. So her story is really inspiring, and she's a great speaker. This is a TED Talk. There's a number of them that she's done, and she's written a book, so she's a pretty interesting person.
It's the 5th time I stand on this shore, the Cuban shore, looking out at that distant horizon, believing again that I'm going to make it all the way across that vast, dangerous wilderness of an ocean. Not only have I tried 4 times, but the greatest swimmers in the world have been trying since 1950. And it's still never been done. The team is proud of our 4 attempts. It's an expedition of some 30 people. Bonnie is my best friend and head handler, who somehow summons will, that last drop of will within me when I think it's gone, after many, many hours and days out there. The shark experts are the best in the world, large predators below. The box jellyfish, the deadliest venom in all of the ocean, is in these waters, and I have come close to dying from them on a previous attempt. The conditions themselves, besides the sheer distance of over 100 miles in the open ocean, currents and whirling eddies, and the Gulf Stream itself, the most unpredictable of all of the planet Earth. And by the way, it's amusing to me that journalists and people, before these attempts often, ask me, well, are you going to go with any boats or any people or anything? And I'm thinking, what are they imagining? That I'll just sort of do some celestial navigation and, carry a Bowie knife in my mouth, and I'll hunt fish and skin them alive and, eat them, and maybe drag a desalinization plant behind me for fresh water. Yes, I have a team. And the team is expert. And the team is courageous and brimming with innovation and scientific discovery, as is true with any major expedition on the planet. And we've been on a journey. And you know, the debate has raged, hasn't it, since the Greeks, of isn't it what it's all about? Isn't life about the journey, not really the destination? And here we've been on this journey, and the truth is it's been thrilling. We haven't reached that other shore, and still, our sense of pride and commitment, unwavering commitment. When I turned 60, the dream was still alive from having tried this in my 20s and dreamed it and imagined it. The most famous body of water on the earth today, I imagine, Cuba to Florida. And it was deep in my soul. And when I turned 60, it wasn't so much about the athletic accomplishment. It wasn't the sort of ego of, I want to be the first. That's always there, and it's undeniable. But it was deeper. It was, how much life is there left? Let's face it, we're all on a one-way street, aren't we? And what are we going to do? What are we going to do as we go forward to have no regrets looking back? And all this past year in training, I had that Teddy Roosevelt quote, to paraphrase it, floating around in my brain, and it says, you go ahead. You go ahead and sit back in your comfortable chair, and you be the critic. You be the observer, while the brave one gets in the ring and engages and gets bloody and gets dirty and fails over and over and over again, but yet isn't afraid and isn't timid and lives life in a bold way. And so, of course, I want to make it across. It is the goal. And I should be so shallow to say that this year, the destination was even sweeter than the journey. But the journey itself was worthwhile taking. And at this point, by this summer, everybody, scientists, sports scientists, endurance experts, neurologists, my own team, Bonnie, said it's impossible. It just simply can't be done. And Bonnie said to me, but if you're going to take the journey, I'm going to see you through to the end of it. So I'll be there. And now we're there. And as we're looking out, kind of a surreal moment before the first stroke, standing on the rocks at Marina Hemingway, the Cuban flag is flying above, all my teams out in their boats, hands up in the air. We're here. We're here for you. Bonnie and I look at each other and we say, this year the mantra is, and I've been using it in training, find a way. You have a dream, and you have obstacles in front of you, as we all do. None of us ever get through this life without heartache, without turmoil. And if you believe and you have faith, and you can get knocked down and get back up again, and you believe in perseverance as a great human quality, you find your way. And Bonnie grabbed my shoulders and she said, let's find our way to Florida. And we started. And for the next 53 hours, it was an intense, unforgettable life experience. The highs were high, the awe. I'm not a religious person, but I tell you, to be in the azure blue of the Gulf Stream, as if as you're breathing, you're looking down miles and miles and miles, to feel the majesty of this blue planet we live on. It's awe-inspiring. I have a playlist of about 85 songs, and especially in the middle of the night. And that night, because we use no lights, lights attract jellyfish, lights attract sharks, lights attract bait fish that attract sharks. So we go in the pitch black of the night. You've never seen black, this black. You can't see the front of your hand, and the people on the boat, Bonnie and my team on the boat, they just hear the slapping of the arms, and they know where I am because there's no visual at all. And I'm out there kind of tripping out on my little playlist. I've got tight rubber caps. I don't hear a thing. I've got goggles and I'm turning my head 50 times a minute. I'm singing, imagine there's no heaven. Do-do-do-do-do. It's easy if you try. Do-do-do-do-do. And I could sing that song 1,000 times in a row. Now there's a talent unto itself. And each time I get done with, ooh, you may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. 222. Imagine there's no heaven. And when I get to the end of 1,000 of John Lennon's Imagine, I have swum 9 hours and 45 minutes. Exactly. And then there are the crises. Of course there are. And the vomiting starts, the seawater, you're not well, you're wearing a jellyfish mask for the ultimate protection. It's difficult to swim in, it's causing abrasions on the inside of the mouth, but the tentacles can't get you. And the hypothermia sets in. The water's 85 degrees, and yet you're losing weight and using calories. And as you come over toward the side of the boat, not allowed to touch it, not allowed to get out, but Bonnie and her team hands me nutrition and asks me what I'm doing, how am I all right? I am seeing the Taj Mahal over here. I'm in a very different state. And I'm thinking, wow, I never thought I'd be running into the Taj Mahal out here. It's gorgeous. I mean, how long did it take them to build that? It's just so, woo. And then we kind of have a cardinal rule that I'm never told really how far it is, because we don't know how far it is. What's going to happen to you between this point and that point? What's going to happen to the weather and the currents? And God forbid you're stung when you don't think you could be stung in all this armor. And Bonnie made a decision coming into that third morning that I was suffering and I was hanging on by a thread. And she said, come here. And I came close to the boat and she said, look out there. And I saw light because the day's easier than the night and I thought we were coming into day. And I saw a stream of white light along the horizon. And I said, it's going to be morning soon. She said, no, those are the lights of Key West. It was 15 more hours, which for most swimmers would be a long time. You have no idea how many 15-hour training swims I had done. So here we go, and I somehow, without a decision, went into no counting of strokes and no singing and no quoting Stephen Hawking and the, parameters of the universe. I just went into thinking about this dream and why and how. And as I said, when I turned 60, it wasn't about that concrete, can you do it? That's the everyday machinations. That's the discipline, and it's the preparation, and there's a pride in that. But I decided to think as I went along about, the phrase usually is reaching for the stars, and in my case, it's reaching for the horizon. And when you reach for the horizon, as I've proven, you may not get there, but what a tremendous build of character and spirit that you lay down. What a foundation you lay down in reaching for those horizons. And now the shore is coming. And there's just a little part of me that's sad. The epic journey is going to be over. So many people come up to me now and say, what's next? We love that. That little tracker that was on the computer, when are you going to do the next one? We just can't wait to follow the next one. Well, they were just there for 53 hours. And I was there for years. And so there won't be another epic journey in the ocean, but the point is, and the point was, that every day of our lives is epic. And I'll tell you, when I walked up onto that beach, staggered up onto that beach, and I had, so many times in a very puffed up ego way, rehearsed what I would say on the beach. When Bonnie thought that the back of my throat was swelling up, and she brought the medical team over to our boat to say, that she's really beginning to have trouble breathing. Another 12, 24 hours in the salt water, the whole thing. And I just thought in my hallucinatory moment that I heard the word tracheotomy. And Bonnie said to the doctor, I'm not worried about her not breathing. If she can't talk when she gets to the shore, she's going to be pissed off. But the truth is, all those orations that I had practiced just to get myself through some training swims as motivation, it wasn't like that. It was a very real moment with that crowd, with my team. We did it. I didn't do it. We did it. And we'll never forget it. It'll always be part of us. And the three things I did sort of blurt out when we got there was, first, never, ever give up. I live it. What's the phrase from today from Socrates? To be is to do. So I don't stand up and say, don't ever give up. I didn't give up. There was action behind these words. The second is, you can chase your dreams at any age. You're never too old. 64, that no one at any age, any gender could ever do, has done it, and has no doubt in my mind that I am at the prime of my life today. Yeah. Thank you. And the third thing I said on that beach was, it looks like the most solitary endeavor in the world, and in many ways, of course, it is. And in other ways, and the most important ways, it's a team. And if you think I'm a badass, you want to meet Bonnie. Bonnie, where are you? Where are you? There's Bonnie Stoll, my buddy. The Henry David Thoreau quote goes, when you achieve your dreams, it's not so much what you get as who you have become in achieving them. And yeah, I stand before you now. In the 3 months since that swim ended, I've sat down with Oprah, and I've been in President Obama's Oval Office. I've been invited to speak in front of esteemed groups such as yourselves. I've signed a wonderful major book contract. All of that's great, and I don't denigrate it. I'm proud of it all, but the truth is, I'm walking around tall because I am that bold, fearless person. And I will be every day until it's time for these days to be done. Thank you very much, and enjoy the conference. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Find a way.
Reactions? I'm blown away every time I see this.
Yeah.
64 years old.
I remember that when she actually achieved it, and she didn't look good on TV.
Did you see?
I remember, I was like, oh my God, this woman did this amazing, like crazy.
Yeah, if you go
Amazing.
back and look at the footage when she arrived, I mean, she
Yes.
really does not look, it's very scary.
Yeah.
What she went through.
And look at her, wow.
Yeah.
That's
It's really
resilience.
encouraging. Just to share a few things about her life. She did not have an easy life. She grew up in a home with domestic violence. She was a swimmer from a young age, and she worked very closely with a coach that she really trusted and loved. Turns out he sexually abused her at age 11. So she has overcome, besides the feat of swimming, but just in her life, a number of obstacles, which just kind of makes it even more poignant. Are you going to? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted to say
Oh no, I was
something.
scratching my head.
So, the thing that strikes me as well is how often she refers to her team. That it really was a team effort. It wasn't something she did alone. And it was a huge team. And just the preparation, it wasn't just the journey itself. And just like life, there's so much that goes into everything that we do. So she has a book out. There are a number of other TED Talks. So I encourage you, if you're interested, to look at what else she has to offer, because she really has. She's a great speaker, and there are a number of really inspiring talks that she's given. So kind of brings us to, how we can become more resilient. And, as we started out saying, it is something that certainly can be learned. There are a number of things to do. We have some exercises for you in mindfulness. And that's, and goes along with the whole trauma-informed idea. Mindfulness is now something that's really being promoted. They're teaching children in school, how to calm themselves, how to center. It really, there are a number of strategies that can help to make you more resilient. If you can face the obstacles. We all face anxieties, we all have difficult things, but it's, some of these tools that are available that help you to get through them. And they work. They really do. I just saw somewhere where there was a saying about, it's not whether the glass is half full or half empty, but it's that you can refill it. So it's not this inborn, some people say, well, I'm just a born pessimist, You can change that, and every positive experience you have, reinforces that. So there are 5 resilience strategies that we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail. Oops, I'm sorry. Cultivating optimism, shifting your focus, processing feelings, getting connected, and being present. So cultivating optimism, as I said, it is something that certainly can be done. We know that people who have an optimistic attitude do better, have less physical disabilities. They have less anxiety and depression. So if you catch yourself, feeling negative about something, if you can turn that around and try to see the positive, it certainly has a good impact. Again, we're not born optimistic. And it's not, about being falsely optimistic. It's not like we're just going to look at everything through rose-colored glasses, but that we can see that we get through things. And I think experience teaches that. And that's why I think adolescents and children have such a hard time, because they don't have the life experience to see that these things change. What feels devastating today, it doesn't feel quite that way in a couple of weeks or months. And when we've been through life experiences, we know that. Children don't have that a lot of times, so that's why they struggle so much. So we have to remind ourselves of that. We've been through difficult things before, and we've gotten through them. So, it's not forever. Nothing is permanent. Think about what words you use. When you label yourself and say, I'm a pessimist, or, I always do things wrong, or I never really get what I want. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and we kind of become what we say we are. So, we need to pay attention to our self-talk, and that's how we cultivate optimism. Things may not be as great as we want them to be, but usually they're not as bad as we think they are either. And a good exercise sometimes is saying, well, what's the worst that could happen? What is really happening? Because sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you just feel like, this is terrible. And you start building on all that negativity. If you take a step back and say, realistically, what is the worst that could happen here? And how would I deal with that? And break it down into steps. It changes your outlook. Shifting your focus. So, because of our need to survive, we're sort of programmed. The Neanderthal man was taught to scan the environment and look for threats. And that's sort of part of our DNA. We do that. But it doesn't serve us all the time, because there's usually not a physical threat out there. So we don't need to always be looking for the negative, and we have to catch ourselves when we do that. If we look for positive, we'll find positive. If we look for negative, that's all we're going to see. So we have to catch ourselves, when we're really focusing on all the negative things. And again, it's training. It's sort of catching yourself doing it over and over again, and then it becomes more second nature. And a nice exercise is a gratitude journal. If you are finding that you're kind of in a stressful time, force yourself every day to just sort of sit down and say, what are 3 positive things that happened today? And it may not come easy. The first time you may be like, nothing really positive happened today. But the more you think about it, the person at Dunkin' Donuts smiled at me when they gave me my coffee. Whatever it is, and you just keep looking for those positives, and you realize that they're there. And the thought is, you know, if you do anything for 2 or 3 weeks, it becomes a habit. So, you know, force yourself to do it, and it becomes easier and easier. Processing difficult feelings. There was a woman that had was diagnosed with cancer and had to have a mastectomy, Joyce. She was feeling pretty distraught about it and talking to her friends and, you know, saying, you know, that she just was really having a hard time getting through this. And one friend said, well, look at it this way, you're alive. You know, yeah, you have cancer, but you're alive. And, you know, she said, yeah. And the other friend said, well, all right, you're having, you know, a mastectomy. You're not having both breasts removed. You're only having one. So look at it that way. You know, it could be worse. It's only one. She, you know, was still having sort of a difficult time. And the third friend said to her, wow, you know, I can see you're really struggling, and this is a really hard thing to get through, and I'm sorry that you have to do this. And that's what she needed to hear. You know, so a lot of times we need to affirm each other and ourselves, you know, and just sort of sit with the negative feelings. Don't try to talk yourself out of it, but, you know, say, okay, you know, I'm going to accept the fact that, yeah, this is hard right now. May not be feeling well. I may be struggling with a personal problem. I may be having a hard time at work, whatever it is. You know, the first step is sort of admitting that. And when we were talking to other people and we're trying to help them, you know, pointing out what could be worse never helps. You know, we think it will, but it doesn't. You know, when you're feeling bad, you're feeling bad. You know, and sometimes when someone affirms that feeling, then you're able to move past it. And then you're able to start, you know, looking at, you know, how can I develop more optimism and how can I see the positives around me. But if no one's affirming that negative feeling, you tend to get stuck in it. You know, and it just gets harder and harder to move past it. So sometimes that's all people need to hear, that, you know, yeah, you know, I'm sorry you're feeling that way. Exercise is a great thing to do. You know, it's something we hear all the time, but it really does make a difference if you're moving more. You know, it's a lot easier to process negative feelings. Again, you know, the journaling and really getting down to, you know, what's really going on. You know, if you start writing sometimes, things will come out that you're not even aware of. You know, you may think that this is how you're feeling, and then when you just lose yourself in writing, sometimes you discover more and more, and more feelings come out. And, you know, looking at sort of, why am I having a hard time with this? Why is this bothering me? Are there connections? Have I felt this way before? Just understanding yourself a little bit more can help. If you know that there's something that you struggle with, you know, it helps to know that okay, this is sort of a sensitive point for me, so this is why I'm having such a hard time. It may have something to do with, you know, an experience that you had a long time ago, and it reminds you of that. You know, and negative events are cumulative. You know, just like loss is cumulative. You know, when you go through a loss, it brings back, you know, whatever other feelings that you've had around loss before. So it's not just that one event. You know, it sort of connects us back, and it's important to know that and sort of recognize, you know, that might be what's going on. And then asking yourself, you know, what can I do to make it better? What's helped in the past? You know, if you practice this, you get to know what works for you. You know, maybe journaling helps, maybe it doesn't. Maybe exercise, you know, maybe talking to a friend, maybe, you know, going and seeing a movie or doing something you enjoy. But you get to know what works for you. What are the things that really work? And that's important to know, because when things are tough, you don't want to have to be struggling at that point to figure out what to do. If you have, you know, sort of a list of things in your mind that you know make you feel better, then that's your go-to. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, we learn things. As hard as it is to go through something negative, when you look back on it, sometimes you say, wow, you know, I learned something. I learned something about myself. I learned something about a relationship. So there was some value there. So, you know, that helps too if we find the positive aspect of it. You know, what did I learn from this? We know connections are really important. People that have good social connections live longer, you know, are less sick or less depressed. And sometimes it doesn't have to be a huge social network. You know, one friend is enough. The one study here says that, you know, if you have one connection every 3 weeks, you can get a benefit. Being socially isolated is negative. There is a study that shows that it is equal to smoking 15 cigarettes a day in terms of what it does to your health and your body. And it doesn't have to just be people. You know, some people get a lot of connection from pets. I recently read a study about, you know, if you look into your pet's eyes and you kind of look at each other, you both get benefits, and that people have their blood pressure actually reduce when they are interacting with their pets. So, you know, it certainly is positive. Technology is one way of staying connected. You know, we all know technology has its positives and its negatives, but there are people that do use technology to stay in touch with people who are far away that, you know, they don't get to see as often as they would like. So, you know, it certainly has its benefits. It's not good when it's the exclusion of any real face-to-face time, but, you know, it can help people stay connected, especially if they're, you know, if they're feeling pretty isolated. Being present, and that's, you know, I mentioned mindfulness before. I was watching another video about mindfulness in schools, and schools are really starting to use more mindfulness exercises as opposed to discipline, and they're finding that it works. That, you know, using behavior charts and positive and negative consequences and all that doesn't teach children anything. And, you know, sometimes just having kids calm down. A lot of my staff use this, they get a jar and they put glitter and glue in it and food coloring, and they use it with kids. They shake it when they first come into the office and they put it on the desk, and then they tell the kids to just watch it. And, you know, the particles are all, the glitter is all swimming around, and then, you know, it starts to slow down and finally it settles. And the kids settle as well, you know, as they watch it. And we usually give them a jar to take home so that, you know, when they're feeling stressed, they can do that. Just being able to calm yourself is a great skill. It's a lot easier. We all know we can't think when we're stressed. You know, if you've ever been pulled over, you know, I've had this happen where, you know, I can't even remember where I keep my license, you know, and I'm just, you know, you're stressed, you're nervous, you don't know what's happening. So we can't make good decisions, we can't process things when we're anxious. So we really can benefit if we can learn mindfulness and learn how to calm ourselves. We all have negative feelings, we all have stress, we all have anger, but how we respond to that, you know, is what makes the difference. So a lot of mindfulness is being present in this moment. So we don't want to be thinking about, you know, what just happened. And we do that all the time. You know, you're driving and you're thinking about, oh, you know, I've got to get to this meeting and what's going to happen there and what am I going to make for dinner? And, you know, all of a sudden you realize you've driven, you know, 20 miles and you don't even remember driving. You know, and we do that all the time. And a good thing to do is catch yourself doing that and realizing that, you know, bring yourself to this moment. You can't do anything about what's going to happen in an hour. You can't do anything about what happened 2 hours ago. Just be in the moment. You know, it's hard to do, you know, and yoga and meditation, I mean, they're all great exercises. And I know a lot of people say, you know, my mind wanders, I can't do it. That's okay. You know, the more you practice it and the more you just let your mind wander and then bring it back, you know, it becomes easier and easier each time you do it. And being present is also a great gift for the people around you. You know, how many times are you with people and you're having a conversation, but you're thinking about what you're going to say next, you know, or you're thinking about something else entirely. You're not really present. You're not really listening. You're not really paying attention to what's happening right in that moment. So it makes a difference in your relationships when you really practice mindfulness and being present. So as I mentioned, there is a resiliency quiz that I passed around. You know, you certainly don't have to take it now, but it is a good thing to, if you want to do it just to see where you score and, you know, maybe where you need to work. There is the quiz, and then there's also a scoring guide that, you know, kind of tells you where you are. And it's a good thing to kind of counter that with the, as I mentioned, we did the adverse childhood experience, the ACEs study. You know, if you go back and look at that, if you did that at the last training, or if you still have that, you know, kind of see, you know, how high did you score on that? And if there are concerns, do the resiliency and see where you score on that. You know, and again, it kind of teaches you what do you need to work on. You know, what do you need to do to become more resilient? Because we all, you know, it's a process. Which, like Diane and I had said, it's, you know, it's the journey. Nobody is there. You know, we're all constantly working towards it. But there are a lot of things that we can do to help build resilience and help those around us. If you catch people's language, a lot of times we hear people saying things that, are really negative about themselves, I'm no good at this, or, something like that. Remind them, say, think about what you're saying to yourself. Would you talk to a friend that way? A lot of times we talk to ourselves in a much more negative way than we would talk to someone else, and we are able to encourage others, but not ourselves. So we need to kind of turn those skills around. So I did not have copies of the PowerPoint, but we're going to send them out to everyone, so you will have all this, and you'll have the link to the video. And as I mentioned, you have all the handouts. There are a number of apps that you can also look for. One is called Calm. There's a lot of free ones out there that, if that is helpful to, some people use it for sleep. You can, some of them are kind of guided imageries where they'll take you through. But there's a lot of really nice things out there that will help. Sometimes, people find it hard to just do it on their own, so the apps are almost like being in a class where they will take you through that. So, anybody have any comments?
Thanks for the class.
Well, you're welcome. Did it, I know almost everyone's goal was to learn a little bit more. Did we get that?
I'm gonna put it on the list on my refrigerator.
And I'll be taking it off.